Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
Now, here's your host, Ed Cohen.
This is Ed Cohen in San Diego, California, and today is October 1. It's the fourth quarter and the clock is ticking. So how are we going to make sales, and how are we going to set up companies overseas? How are we going to protect ourselves against this crazy black swan stuff going on about cybersecurity and weather changes and violence? And how can companies better prepare themselves for dealing with the snapping back to business, hopefully? Ann Ellis is an expert in setting companies up. Cata Mayorga and I have known each other for a few years. She's back in California from Spain. Cata Mayorga is an attorney, but and works with large corporations, helping them on projects. Cata, quickly introduce yourself a little bit better than I just did.
Thank you, Ed. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cata Mayorga, and I'm located in San Francisco, California, Silicon Valley. Shiny day today. Unbelievable. This is not the usual, but yes, to introduce myself, I graduated from law school in Spain. I was accepted in the State Bar of California to practice as a foreign attorney. But what I do through the years, when I came to the United States 13 years ago, I usually help tech companies in terms of the global mobility, total rewards, and tax equalization for those expats moving overseas or coming inbound to the US. My experience here in the Bay Area is helping Dropbox, Workday, Riverbed, security company IT, and as well DoorDash. We secure employees' visas in terms of immigration, and as well we do the relocation, the housing with third-party vendors, and as well we take care of all the tax equalization for expats.
So Cata, are you also helping companies go global?
Yes. So I can talk about this because it's public now. At the last time we spoke, I was not able to talk about it. We successfully launched DoorDash operations in Japan, Tokyo, as well Mexico, Distrito DF, and as well Australia, Sydney. So what we do, and it was very complicated to do it during the pandemic because we were not able to fly, American team to those locations. So we have to write a completely new playbook, how to launch a new market remotely. So it was the most tough and difficult things in my life.
Great. And now let's go to Ann. Ann Ellis and I have known each other several years, has spoken at my live meetings in Europe and also in the US. And here we are, first time on TV, sort of. You're audio and we're video. Hello, Ann.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I'm here in Dubai at the moment. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get over to the US now since January 2020. However, we are still operating as usual. In fact, I'm very happy to say that our business has doubled since the pandemic started, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of the company. We've been operating for 25 years, and I can say that this is the busiest we have ever been, because our type of service, where we're supporting companies who either need to expand overseas or need to operate overseas, because of this, we are really finding that we are in high demand because people don't want to move anymore. So a lot of companies located in the US or in Europe, they have employees that don't want to relocate to where they are, their main bases. They want to work from home. They want to stay in their home country. So what we're doing is supporting those employees. We are employing them on behalf of the clients wherever they are based. And this is a very successful way of working for all our employees and clients.
We're going to come back to Ann, and we're going to do a deep dive into employer of record and that kind of thing. So Chuck Brooks and I have known each other a long time also. He has spoken at our meetings at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., and has been our guest on radio and TV multiple times. And now more than ever, Chuck Brooks, your specialty is being recognized by everybody in the world. And so congratulations. I don't mean to embarrass you with all this, but you are a cybersecurity expert. And this so-called infrastructure bill has a lot of money in it to redo the grid. What do you think of all that?
Well, some of it is good, some of it isn't. You can't really cure cybersecurity by throwing money at it. Most of it really comes down to preparedness and the basics, cyber hygiene, passwords, strong firewalls, encryption, everything that every business could do. And a lot of the targets of cybersecurity really are small, medium-sized business. As a matter of fact, that 60% of them that get attacked by cyber breaches, usually go out of business in the next year. So that's something that I think that the government can help with infrastructure, but it will not, alleviate the issue. It's really a part of the industry to take on this challenge by itself, invest in it, and recognize that cybersecurity is a part of return on investment now. It's not just an expense for businesses. As far as infrastructure, yeah, every country really needs it because it's a wild, wild west out there. They had the Colonial Pipeline attack. Most of the infrastructure is antiquated, was built with security in mind. And so the government does need to invest in that. And hopefully they will. There's a lot of initiatives through the Department of Energy, through CISA and Department of Defense in the United States to bolster the defenses of a lot of these electric grids and installations that we have. But it's a tough threat. You're talking about nation states. You're talking about organized criminal hackers, and there's a lot of now meshing between operational technology systems and IT systems. So it's a real issue as we move more and more into the digital age.
So Chuck, with companies going global using Ann's company, employer of record, helping companies grow by operating simultaneously international without moving people. So what about their security?
Security is everyone's business, and particularly global companies, because you have a lot of third-party vendors, you have a lot of connectivity around the world. All of them are points of entry for hackers. And it only takes one successful hack to take out a business. So you really want to make sure that you have the right preparations in place, that you've done vulnerabilities assessments. You're really able to put security first, no matter what you're doing, and particularly nowadays in a global business, because everyone is a target.
Okay, so we want to come back to you if you have time in just a couple of minutes. And I want to go to our security guy over here, Ed Rivas. So Ed Rivas and I, and through past past connections and situations, we produced a whole series of security meetings in Atlanta and in Chicago and in
Dallas and Houston.
Yeah, Dallas and Houston. How could I forget? And we had hundreds of people in the audience. My God, it was really that was a wow. Okay, now that was at the time when active shooters were making a mess of things, but now there seems to be more violence, not just active shooters.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about Kabul, okay, and duty of care or duty not to care or what, Why don't you do a quick deep dive on this situation so we can get a grip on this?
Yeah, so I think all of us saw, 4 or 5 weeks ago, the end of the airlift, right, of foreigners and, Afghans that had worked with the United States or other countries, right, to get them out. And it was pretty chaotic. There was even an event where an explosion was detonated right at the gates, and that killed, I think, about 200 Afghanis and about 12 American soldiers. So, you look at it and you think, okay, so what if my employee was there? Now, I think in Afghanistan, it was a little bit different because it already was a hardship situation in the extreme, even before the announced pullout of U.S. and other forces out of Afghanistan. So by that time, very few private companies had any employees in Afghanistan other than security firms, and very few governments had anything other than essential personnel. But that kind of begs the question. So what is your duty? So I don't know if you saw some of the reports, but they were actually what they would call digital Dunkirk. So you actually had former already retired from the U.S. military and other militaries. They actually went back, and this was actually sanctioned by the CIA, where they went in and they actually built like underground railroads, different, with cell phones, with drops, with, special vehicles and so forth, to get people either to the Kabul airport or to CIA headquarters, which is about 1 or 2 miles away, or other land routes. So what they were trying to do was get people out any other which way they could. So while there wasn't a lot of private employers that had people out there, you kind of have to think, what would you do as an employee? And you kind of look back a little bit. I think it is a little bit far in the past, but it's so relevant to what happened in Kabul. Back in 1979, the U.S. embassy in Tehran, Iran, was overtaken by protesters, and it eventually led to about 250, 300 Americans being held hostage for about a little over a year and a half in the embassy as hostages. Well, at the same time that happened, there were 2 employees of Electronic Data Systems, a Texas-based company, of which a billionaire named Ross Perot was the owner. He actually hired, because he had security people on his team, because it was already a global firm, he funded these security personnel of his, which were former military, to actually get a team together like a movie. They actually rented a plane. They got body armor, they got rifles, they got night vision scopes, everything that you need to go ahead and provide an extraction. And they actually flew into Iran with the intention that if these 2 individuals were not released by the Iranian government, they were going to storm the prison and shoot their way in and do these people, kind of thing. Luckily, our U.S. State Department at the very last minute was able to negotiate their release, so there was no armed conflict required. But I think, and colleagues, if you kind of take a look at this, so you look at yourself and you say, well, what's my duty of care when I send an employee overseas? And, we all know some of them know very well where they're going. They speak the language. They've been there before. Others, not so much. They might not even speak the language. Honestly, sometimes people that are sent don't really want to go. So they're not really involved in trying to even get to understand. I remember I was stationed in Mexico City. This is back in the late 1990s. And I was carjacked. It wasn't a very fun experience, but I will give this to my employer at the time. I got carjacked, and literally I was standing in the street and my car was being driven away by 3 thugs. So I called, I worked at an insurance company that including does auto insurance, kind of like State Farm, kind of like Progressive. So I called them up, and when they realized who I was, that I was an expat, that I was really in waters that were not what I was used to, I was way under, they actually pulled 2 claims adjusters out of I think it was a family wedding, and said, you need to go to this part of Mexico City and find Ed Rivas and help him. And it was one of the most important things they ever did, because I would have seen the inside of a jail cell. Because what happened was that the adjusters came, they picked me up, they took me to the police precinct to declare that my vehicle had been stolen and what had happened. It turns out that those 3 thugs were using my vehicle to actually do other carjackings. They would actually pull up and block off other vehicles and then grab people. In fact, there was a young gentleman in the room next door was saying, yes, I got carjacked by this red car with 3 thugs. And it was like they were using my vehicle like only an hour later to carjack people. And the part where it came in very important was that these automobile claims adjusters, they already knew the police. They handle all the time robberies, thefts, accidents. So they already know them, but they also know what the police officers are going to do. So they kept an eye on me. One of the detectives actually pulled me aside, took me to the other side of the lobby, and basically grilled me. Because as I found out later, what they were trying to do, Ed, was to find out if I was an accomplice. If I, quote unquote, let them take my vehicle, and then we'd split the profits of what they got. And luckily that didn't work out, because I remember looking a couple of times to the adjusters, and they were on the other side of the room, nowhere near me, but they were keeping an eye. And they said, look, the detective has every right to interrogate you, but we're going to make sure they do it on the up and up, that you're not just tossed in a slammer just to go ahead and try and get you to talk or something like that. And you know, it wasn't the greatest experience in life, but what's that old saying? What doesn't, do you terrible harm makes you stronger, kind of thing. So I think as employers, we need to think, how far are we willing to go to help out those that are with us?
So what about an organization such as Analysis that helps companies all over the world go into other places without sending their own employees? They have employees on the ground there, and they're not foreigners. That would be like a safer way to go, wouldn't it?
Yes and no. I think one of the things that we find is, and having worked for several global companies, is you always want to have a mix, right? You never want to have only local management or only expatriate management, because what happens is that for the business side, for what is the conduct of business, for the sales, for the legal part, human resources, it doesn't quite work out the way the optimizing does. So I know at the employers I've worked with, we tend to only send expats as needed, because we have a preference for promoting local management up the food chain to basically take command. And at the end of the day, local management, just like they do in any US city, always reporting to the home office. So, Ed, you always have the oh gosh, I got to get on a call with New York or Chicago or LA, because they're the home office. They're going to beat me down about my numbers or something like that, or my expenses. But when it comes to locals, on the one hand, it's a little easier, Ed, in your context, because, well, a local lives and breathes already there. So the day-to-day duty of care is less, right? You really can't control their family, what they do, how they do it, and so forth, especially after hours. But by the same token, one of the things we find in the line of business that we do is that they won't take a French expat, nor will they take a local factory worker. They're going to take one of the local managers that is high up, say the CFO, the HR manager, the operations manager. They're going to take somebody that is not a foreigner, so as not to invoke the embassies and all the trouble that brings, because then you bring in federal, probably military involved. They want to get somebody that's local, but that's high up. And a lot of these locals, they already are wealthy and respected in their own right. They just happen to be working for a global firm. They don't have to work for a global firm, but we hired them because they're the right person for the job. So to your point, Ed, you think by hiring locals, you eliminate that risk, but a lot of times you can actually raise it or need to adjust your strategy.
Well, thank you, Ed. Ann Ellis, would you like to comment?
Well, thankfully, we haven't had any situations over the 25 years we've been in business where any of our employees have been kidnapped or have been hurt or have had problems such as these problems that Ed is talking about. So I suppose we've been very lucky, actually. Good.
Okay.
These events, Anne, are what we would call infrequent, right? I mean, the ability of someone to take somebody can be pretty hard. You have to have a pretty large organization. You have to have not just the intellectual author, but that has connections with government or police to go ahead and properly execute these kind of situations. They also need to have a surveillance team, a takedown team, a housing team, a recovery team, a release team, and so forth. So it's not easy. I think what we see, and interesting to your point, is that a lot of organizations, they worry about car accidents or employees getting ill, but they don't think about this part till it hits them. And statistically, it's very low, but when it does, it's very high impact, right? In that kind of event. But understood about that. And I'm glad your employees have not had that issue.
Yeah, Kata.
And Ribas, I have a question for you. Do you foresee that SOS program is good for these that would travel? Like, are you familiar with SOS travel insurance?
ISOS. Yep. Yeah. So I think what the ISOS program does, it takes care of two things. The first most important part, it takes care of the medical part, that urgency if something happens to somebody, and it isn't being an accident or an illness. It's interesting. We've had these former military personnel that can survive weeks, months, years in hostile environments, and they go on R&R in country, and then they slip on stairs or eat uncooked chicken, and then they're sick to the bone, right?
Yeah.
I think apart from obviously paying for the medical, I remember I had a situation where it was medical related. The biggest problem we had was that the people that were injured did not speak the language. Obviously, they were only there for a short time. They were actually covering the 2000 Olympics. They were reporters. They were covering the 2000 Olympics in Sydney, and they didn't quite understand. It's funny because Sydney, you'd think, okay, that's no problem. Just call 911 or whatever their equivalent is, and you're fine, right? Well, the problem was that as soon as they got to the hospital and, they intake the gentleman and started taking care of it, they asked his son for payment, at least like put down some money and so forth. And the problem was that the son was like, I got one credit card, but like, I don't know if I can cover this. Well, the travel insurance, what we were able to do was actually issue a financial letter of guarantee to that hospital in Sydney saying, look, you are saying from the initial intake that these are the medical issues that our insured person has. If this is true, then we will cover up to 50, 100, 250,000, whatever the limit on the insurance was, of course, naturally subject to the final medical reports, right? So that's the first thing that it does. It provides that. The second part, what SOS does, is that it does provide, but when I say this, I do not mean to make a comment on SOS just simply about the kind of services they give. They tend to give more of the customary or generalized security issues that you might face.
Yeah.
A good example would be like college students. College students, they go and drink somewhere and get in a bar fight. They go off, they're in France, and then they end up being detained in South African police for screaming at the police at the roadblock, right? When they shouldn't even been traveling outside the country. They never advised anybody. So those kind of things SOS is really good for. I think what they need to, any employer needs to consider are two other things. First of all, is a foreign casualty program, which usually is, this is really more for like the United States, United Kingdom, Singapore, but basically what is a workers' compensation or any kind of social security benefits, because most countries will pay for your care when you're in the country. And they may have a stipulation that says, we'll pay if you're overseas temporarily, but they don't actually have anybody to help you. You got to help yourself. And when you come back home, then submit the receipts for reimbursement. And that's not going to work when you're in the middle of nowhere.
That is correct. Yeah.
And the second one is basically what a lot of people call a kidnap and ransom insurance. And that handles the very high level. So it's not just that the college students detained, we've had basically business disputes in foreign countries settled by one party having the other party jailed to go ahead and get them to sign or to get out of the contract and so forth, right? And then the kidnapping, that can either be a monetary or political tool depending on where you are. It can lead to weeks, months, even years of detention and so forth. So that's where you have some specialized programs that have specialized responders a little bit above the normal SOS. And nothing against SOS. Again, I love them. I've used them before. Mm-hmm.
So
Thank you, Ed. Yes, Kata, go ahead.
Experience that I have with SOS, like I transfer veterans from US to a location in the Middle East that I cannot disclose. drop the IT people in a location, and then a truck from military bases will pick them up. But I did my due diligence with SOS, and they have a base in Dubai. If anything happened to my IT people in the Middle East, in Dubai, they will fly an airplane that will get them. So that type of service, like SOS, was
the security evacuation
Yeah.
part. Yeah, exactly. And again, I think that's good thinking in terms of, you've got the boots on the ground to go ahead and take care of those situations. Obviously, there are alternatives to SOS, but SOS is one of the bigger players in that space. So that's very good on your part that you've thought of that. I would just, again, foreign casualty and kidnap and ransom is a little bit different and a little bit higher level than what SOS provides.
Got it.
And, so again, I by no means am I going to say that, no. I mean, SOS is great. Just it's a little bit different in terms of what they handle and what the other two lines of coverage and those responders handle.
Maybe we should talk offline.
Yes.
Yeah, in fact, why don't you go in the chat thing on the bottom there and type in email or website so you guys can do that privately. Just go down the bottom in the chat. So Chuck Brooks, let's get back to you before we go to Shakin and also Tony and Ann. So Chuck, how can we, as well, we're all remote, so how can we protect our computers, from solar winds or other catastrophes?
Well, there's a lot of things we can do. First of all, it's Cyber Security Awareness Month, so it starts today. Good timing. I think the first thing you want to do is have a security strategy and framework, no matter if you're an individual, if you're a small business, or even a large company. And you can follow what is called the NIST framework, which is a risk management framework for cybersecurity, which is protect, defend, respond, and recover. And so if you follow those things, you'll build a strategy around what you want to do. And the first basics, of course, is phishing. Phishing is the number one way of breach. It has been for the last decade or so. And they're very sophisticated. A lot of it's automated now because of machine learning and artificial intelligence. So the first thing you do is obviously don't click on anything that you don't recognize. Make sure that the sender is authentic, and make sure that they're not mimicking someone that whether it's your boss or a friend, because that's how it's often done. Or, I think the number one type of phishing attack is using Amazon, saying your Amazon order is ready to be picked up, etc. So watch out for that too. And then with phishing also comes ransomware. And ransomware has been around for a long time, but it's now more prevalent because of cryptocurrency. People get paid quicker. They can operate and get paid outside of the country. It's harder to trace. So you're seeing more and more ransom attacks. A lot of that's against healthcare too, because I realize that healthcare has to pay. And so you're seeing a lot of hospitals and healthcare facilities experience ransomware attacks. But to get the gist of your question is, there's a lot of things you can do. And the first thing I think you really need to do is, make sure that you know the threat environment out there, what not to do. Keep your confidential data information segmented from what you may use on your regular computer, so it's not accessed easily. Obviously, strong passwords. If you're using a mobile phone, maybe a VPN, maybe not. Make sure you don't operate on a public Wi-Fi, because that's an easy way to get into your phone. Make sure you have strong firewalls and routers. That's always important. And perhaps the most important thing is really back up your data. If you have your data backed up, even if you're hacked, at least you can still operate and go about your business. But it's really a question of cyber hygiene. And then if you're really a business or a small business and you're looking to fortify, there's a lot of managed service providers that offer expertise at they'll do penetration testing, vulnerability assessments, et cetera, which I highly recommend, because you don't know what's in your system and everything's connected. And in fact, by 2023, there'll be 3 times more connected devices around people on the earth. So you really need to know what's in your inventory. You really know who has to know has access. If you had past employees that left and they still have administration privileges, there's just a lot that goes into it, but it's not that difficult if you do a strategy.
Okay, Ed Rivas, you raised your hand.
Yeah, Chuck, thank you for that. I guess the question is, you kind of touched on this, but maybe to narrow down. So we have a very good family friend that has been a chef, a bar cook all his life. And in September, almost about a little over a year ago, he opened up his own Italian restaurant. So like now, and apparently it's booming. Like he is a lot of great, people coming in and so forth. So I am not an official consultant to him by any means, but since I've been in business for a long time, we've talked every once in a while. I give him pointers. He actually gives me pointers too. Where would he be, other than getting Norton antivirus, right? I mean, because obviously he's on, he's taking orders by phone. He's taking orders by internet. He's got a website. He takes payments by credit card, obviously, and so forth. I mean, Chuck, just kind of what, if you were like the three of us were having a brew at his restaurant, having some nice, some bolognese or something like that. I mean, what are some of the things you might tell him that he should look at to go ahead and start fortifying himself to protect himself in case he gets hacked?
Yeah, well, I think one of the first things is particularly with retail businesses, the point of payment systems. They're available. You can be shared in the cloud. There are a lot of services that do that will have inherent protection for you, particularly when you're exchanging credit card money and other things. So that's probably an easy thing for them to do. The other thing is probably set up, basically encryption, business encryption on your operations. So your accounting and your finances and your human resources records are all protected. Have a person in charge of who responsible for the employees who have access to, particularly to the cash register and to other things, to be able to understand that they can't mix their personal with their business activities on those devices, which is often a way of easy entry. And third of all, I think, what I mentioned earlier, I think, if he's doing really well and it's a big business, there are a lot of companies, small companies that will take all of that and do it for you, the managed service providers. So you don't have to be a hassle with it. If you can do it yourself, great. But if you can't, and particularly if you're looking at being a franchise and you're expanding and going to a lot of different areas, those small companies or consultants could set up a nice system for you.
Okay.
So Ann Ellis, as I mentioned, is co-founder and CEO of Mauve, MAUVE. So Ann, as a global company with a lot of people in a lot of places with whom you do business, so security and your technology really has to be perfect, doesn't it, Ann?
Yes, it does. And we have lots of processes in place to make sure that our security is very safe. Everything is on the cloud. All our programs, our systems are on the cloud and are backed up. Obviously, we use the Microsoft 365 actually, and also we now have just implementing our new portal, which is based on the Microsoft Azure, and obviously this will help to make us more secure, because it means that we don't have to correspond with our workers and clients via email, because all of them can access our portal directly. Obviously, there's strong security on our portal on the logins. So this will help us to become more secure with our data. It's very important for us to keep our workers' data safe, mainly because of in Europe we have the GDPR. So it's very important for us. It's a big priority.
And tell us about employer of record. Would you help us understand exactly what that is?
Well, what we do is that we employ workers on behalf of our clients. So if our client is based in the US or any other country in the world, and they don't want to necessarily set up their own entity in other countries, but however, they do need to employ workers in those countries. For example, we work with a lot of IT companies or computer games companies who are looking for special talent, and that talent is all over the world, and they don't want to set up companies in every country in the world in order to employ those people. So that's where we come in. We have 60 plus entities of our own, which are part of the Move Group of companies. And we can employ these people through our entities. They become our employees. We draw up an employment contract with the workers. We make sure that these contracts are compliant with the labor laws of the country where they're working. We pay their salaries. We make sure that the taxes and social security on those salaries are paid to the authorities. So basically, these people who are mainly local are compliant and working compliantly. And we know, the client knows that they can feel secure that their workers are working compliantly, that they're getting paid their salaries on time. And we find that the workers that we have are very satisfied with the services. We put a lot of priority on keeping in contact with those workers, although we are not necessarily the people that are instructing them on what they do. We feel it's very important for us to keep in contact with them and to make sure they're happy in the country where they work, where they are based, so that they feel secure.
Fascinating. Tony Andel, I think your business is mainly US, but you also do global, right?
I do. I work with, right now I'm working a lot with international students, some international companies. So it's global.
Yeah, and you also are into the disaster relief business, right?
Right. I'm a little bit of everything right now. I've been, working over the years. I've worked with many insurance companies, CAT teams, to bring them housing for when they're for the insurers when they're displaced from their homes, for the CAT teams when they go out on assignment and they need to find housing because they're going to be there for anywhere from 3 months to 6 months to 12 months. I'm also, like I said, I'm doing the insurance housing. Right now I'm working primarily with international students, so a little bit of both is what I'm doing.
Interesting. Sachin, so you help people come into India, or you also send people out?
Both the ways. I do in vertical and horizontally. So basically, majorly my expertise are from India to US. But apart from that, we also support US to India as well as other countries, let's say from Sweden to Germany, Germany to Italy, Italy to Poland, you name it, and we get it done. So majorly, we have expertise in the work permits across globe.
Well, it's fascinating to meet you. Thank you so much for your participation here. Okay, so you must do business with Ann Ellis or somebody like her.
Of course, yes. When Anne was talking, so there was certain questions from my end to Anne. It seems, if I'm not wrong, she's into third-party payroll process, and of course, there's a lot of business from my end to Anne. So if Anne can,
frozen.
With me, she can have a Zoom call with me. We can work together.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, this is Ed, and I thank you for tuning in to Global TV Talk Show, a unit on globalbusinessnews.net. We broadcast to the world, as you know by now. So I wanted to make sure that you understand that our programs are advertising supported. We're grateful for co-sponsors, advertisers. They have a marketing budget coupled with a strong desire to be associated with our top quality program. And of course, I'm grateful. Thank you. So for the next few minutes, you're going to see some commercials. It's mostly very low key, and our prices are very, very reasonable. Our exposure for the advertisers go 12 months and beyond. Some of our advertisers have been with us since March, April of 2020. And Google Analytics has tracked over 125,000 what they call audience page views, which means you looking at this page, that's a page view. Now, if you happen to go to one of our other shows, or to our radio broadcasts or to our newspaper or magazine, those become additional page views as measured by Google Analytics. And so when they say 125,000 since spring of 2020 up through Labor Day, a month ago, that's pretty good numbers. And the past 30 days, Google Analytics has measured just under 6,000 audience page views. And that, according to them, is a 42% increase in audience participation over the month of August. So thank you very much. Well, here's our advertisers, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes or so, and we'll proceed with this interesting conversation. Thank you.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice, at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
And by airs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at airs.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
Become a global player in your field.
Cross Culture to Go provides virtual support for your global business and career success.
We can help you thrive in 140 plus countries and markets.
On the web at crossculturetogo.com.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
Hi, I'm Sergey Gorbatov.
I'm Angela Lane.
Together we're researchers, writers and practitioners in the field of human resources.
And we've also been multi-country, multi-assignment career expats.
We owe our professional development and growth to a very large extent to the international assignment opportunities that we have had.
But in a world where distributed work may become the norm, we also want to understand what will happen to the nature, duration, and purpose of international assignments.
Together with our colleague, Julian Dalzell from the University of South Carolina, we're undertaking a study on the future of expatriation.
And we'd value your contribution. You can participate in this important study by completing a simple 10-minute questionnaire.
Access the questionnaire by typing in your browser tinyurl.com/expert study. That's tinyurl.com/expert study. You can also find the link here on Ed's website next to this video.
Thank you for joining us in this study. In return for your contribution, we'll provide you with a copy of our research.
And of course, you'll be invited to an exclusive webinar hosted by Ed, where we will share our findings right here on Global Business News.
And so please go to tinyurl.com/expat study. Take the survey so that we can better understand the future of expatriation.
Chuck Brooks, you've just been published in Forbes magazine. Which article was that?
The most recent one was on artificial intelligence and machine learning and how it's affecting cybersecurity and other elements too. But I've written a lot on emerging tech because we're moving so rapidly in the industry 4.0 that it's really usurping a lot of the ways we protect ourselves and do business.
So here we are on Zoom, and I don't know anything about security on this. I mean, nobody's ever crashed any of my broadcasts. I don't know why they would bother, but Chuck, what do you have to say about Zoom and the security thing that we should consider?
Well, I think you have to always assume, first of all, the Zoom did have an issue a few months ago, and they've upped their security with more encryption and protection from people jumping into events. I think the most problematic part of Zoom is people forget they're on camera often in these business meetings with 20 people, and they forget they do stuff they probably shouldn't be doing online, and that's where the issues are. So I think it's just the etiquette issue and awareness issue for most of that. But having said that, platforms are being targeted because as we move more and more to digital communications and do business in this manner, hackers are looking for every angle, and particularly with corporate secrets. So there's extra needs for security when you're doing something that's of a sensitive nature. And if you're in a government role, you wouldn't be using Zoom, but in a secure fashion, but you would use it in a general fashion.
So look, I'm a dummy about all this. So is Zoom, is our TV show here, what I call TV show, is this digital?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Yeah, it can be digital and analog, but yes, absolutely. I mean, it is really Zoom is, if you had invested in that a couple of years ago before COVID, you would have been in good shape. But the way we do stuff, and it's still in the United States, although it's iffy sometimes, people are still not doing live meetings and events that they were before. So there's still more and more activities done in this kind of format.
So, in the past, as you've spoken at my live meetings, mainly in Washington, we haven't done a live meeting since February 27 of 2020, and that was in Washington at the on Embassy Row. I think you spoke of that. Yeah, right. That was the last live meeting we've done. So I'm trying to launch a hybrid meeting, which I'm calling VIP, virtual in person. Okay, a combination. And I'm planning on doing it first here in San Diego because I'm here, but then I've been invited to come to London and also Hamburg. So we were trying to figure out when to do that. So my question to you is about security, okay? And how, if we do a live meeting in, let's say, the hotel in Piccadilly, and we have live people there, but we also do this to broaden our reach and connect. How can that be secured? I'm from California. I'm going to bring my computer. I'm going to hook it up to the Hotel Piccadilly. How do I know that's going to be secure?
Was that for Chuck or for Ed?
Chuck. Oh,
okay.
Ed too. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, there are. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to hook it up to the hotel, you have to worry. Usually, there's some hotels that are more prepared. Probably Piccadilly was probably one of them. But hotels are notorious for being lax on security, and they're great entry points for hackers. When you use the public Wi-Fi or even the hotel Wi-Fi, it's just not secure. So I think really, if you really want to do a meeting in one of those places, you probably have to set up your own platform and have it encrypted. Maybe run on their platform, but keep your own, authentication, sign in, double authentication, just to make sure that you who's attending is supposed to be attending. But having said that, most meetings are not targeted by hackers. I mean, they're looking to get profit, and if they don't see there's any value in, other than if you're a hacktivist trying to create a nuisance, they're not going to really focus their attention on you. They will focus more on retail opportunities or healthcare where they can extort money. So, I'm not sure that every meeting is a target, but you just got to pretend that it is just in case.
Right. Well, ours have nothing to do with money, believe me. Yes, Tony.
Well, I have a question for either Chuck or Ed. With the international and people talking through WhatsApp, what's your opinion on WhatsApp? Because it's not only phone conversations, but a lot of, using it as text messaging. And I know the students, that's their most comfortable way of communicating is through WhatsApp, because language barrier, that they're young. So that's the kind of technology that they like to use. What's your thought on WhatsApp and what information that goes through such an application?
Well, they were found to be vulnerable again a few months back, and they've upgraded their security too. And so does Signal. The problem, I mean, it's a very good application, I think, for most secure communications, but it stores a lot of your conversations and other things. So that can be hacked if it's on your device. But generally, I think it's a good medium to use, and it is again hackers go where the low hanging fruit is mostly, and they don't want to deal with having to go through Signal or WhatsApp if they don't have to. There's plenty of other targets.
Yeah, Ed Rivas.
Yeah. So Tony, it's interesting your comment. We've worked with a lot of universities over the years and so forth. And I remember one specific case. There were some college students and they were doing some work out in Zimbabwe. This is some years ago before Mugabe fell. So Mugabe still had a very tight control over everything in that country. And one of the students, she was a little bit more, as young people are, was a little bit more activist in her style than most older adults are. And it was actually email in this case, but it's all open source, right? And those governments, those militaries, they can hack this stuff. I mean, you don't even really need to hack. You just kind of need to get into the feed and so forth. It's really not that hard because, college students want people to hear what they say. And so what she was saying was basically, we're here in Zimbabwe, we're helping the people because this horrible government is oppressing the people. They hate them, they don't want them. Before you knew it, all 13 students and the advisor were in jail. They were detained by the military. And basically what our response consultants had to do was go in there. And this is kind of a summary of what happened, but the actions we had to take to convince the government to release them was one, to delete all those posts, ask, I think, from like the servers and so forth. And of course, then they didn't have to necessarily send an email out saying the government is great, but they basically had to stop the email chain and delete what they could. They went ahead and had to, and this is the interesting part, and this is where the insurance came in. We actually paid the fine that was levied against them for violating the rules and regulations of the country, and also for the expense of housing them in jail. Now, of course, they were basically fed swill, but they were told, we were charged for feeding them lobsters, basically, kind of thing, and triple police overtime and an extra room in the jail and so forth. And the final part was that all 13 students and the advisor actually had to sign sign a written documentation that, Zimbabwe is a great country. The government has been the greatest host, and everybody is so happy in this country. And all 14 had their travel privileges revoked permanently for Zimbabwe. They could never go back, which is actually, that final part is one of the better ways to go ahead and convince the government that, sorry, we messed up. Well, let's get out of here. Let us get out of here, and we'll never come back to be with you. So, or to mess with you. So I think really what that boils down to, Tony, is that, and now it's proliferated, with Twitter, with Instagram, WhatsApp, TikTok, kids want to be famous. My son's a senior in high school. His best buddy doesn't want to go to college because he wants to be a YouTube star like Ed,
Yeah.
And then we actually read our boys, especially the older one, we read them the Riot Act, saying that what you post is permanent. I remember one of them said, well, Snapchat deletes it, after like 15 minutes. I go, oh, really? That's only $600. And he may correct me, Chuck. I was like, and my son was like, what's that? I go, $600 is the cost of the program to go ahead and historically pull all those deleted Snapchats. So if someone wants to know about you, they're going to know about you. And foreign governments, especially like a place like China, like Russia, they're extremely sensitive to any kind of information. And the best leverage they have, which they will use time and again, is to detain and jail the perpetrators and anybody with them. It's a tried and true method because, quite frankly, we as Americans and Europeans, India, Dubai, we're all used to due process of the law. You have to get a barrister, an attorney, a lawyer, but you're provided you. A lot of countries, they will not give you that luxury. And even by the time you try and get through due process, you've already been there several months. You might as well just go ahead and quite frankly, pay up, sign the document saying that you were wrong, and leave forever kind of thing, and learn from your experience kind of thing.
Thank you, Ed. This is really fascinating. Ann Ellis, you have a new thing coming out. Is that the portal? Is that where all the excitement is?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, yes, we are going to be launching our portal. We're already testing it now with a number of clients, and this will be launched in beginning of 2022. So yeah, that's exciting for us.
Wow, that's great. Wow, and congratulations. So Tony, let's get off the security thing for a second, but let's talk about care, the duty to care, not duty of care. And you're the epitome of that, in my opinion, because you do so much to be helpful to people in need. Are you involved in the Afghan immigration thing at all?
No, actually, I'm not involved with that at all.
Okay.
I've not touched that. Like I said, I've been doing a lot of the, helping with a lot more of the U.S. And my real international right now is the students and everything. But no, I've not worked with that.
Okay, so students coming in to, the college here in San Diego, UCSD, University of California, San Diego, has like 50,000 students, never mind admins and teachers, and it's right up the road here, 10 miles from where I am right now. And it's huge. And they've got a huge housing problem because San Diego's full,
Right,
I mean,
right.
There's a big sign on the freeway, sorry, we're full, turn around.
No, that's happening. I mean, that's happening across the nation. And that's probably been one of the challenges because there's a couple of things that's going on here. I don't know if you heard, Santa Barbara is the same way. They had to put over 2,000 students in hotels. I mean, they literally took hotels down and were putting the students there. Same thing with New York. We're having the problem there. It's interesting because the students aren't, back to kind of security and everything. So when they're trying to rent apartments, these apartments are like, but we don't know you from Adam. So, you're sitting there and you're like, okay, well, their country won't let them come over unless they can prove financially they are able to come and live in our country. So, I'm sitting there, I'm coordinating with all of these different apartment complexes, corporate housing companies and everything, and just trying to, demonstrate that. But there is no inventory. I mean, it's, the schools are sending them over and they have nowhere else to live. So I've been doing a juggling act of really begging and reaching out to apartment communities, corporate housing companies, and juggling it. And we've had people, I mean, just one child had a college student, I guess he was wanting me to call him child, but a college student, he had to cancel his trip because he could not get the right roommates. His roommates kept changing their mind. And so he had to cancel his trip. I'm like, well, I can find you other roommates. He's like, no, these are the ones that I want. So the whole housing crisis has been crazy. I mean, I even have, access to MLS of trying to find, homes to rent. And it's been a challenge to talk landlords into giving shorter term leases in a market that's highly impacted. So,
and the cost of insurance, because if it's kids and partying or
yes, right. And they don't, and
whatever.
they're doing, I mean, back in the world of corporate housing, corporate housing never does security deposits. Now they're like, okay, we are doing, security deposits. The apartment communities are doing the higher security deposits. Instead of 1 month, they're doing 2 months up front and back. And so it's been a very fun, interesting ride. And I mean, I've been talking to, students from almost every, just countries all over the world. And so it's been fun helping them. But then there's times I've taken it too personal because I have college students. And so, if I can't get them exactly what they want, I'm like, okay, well, we have to do this. You have to go 5 miles more out. You can't walk to school, so it's been, I take a lot of it personal. I take really good care of them because of that. I'm just hand-holding them the whole way.
Yeah. Ed Rivas, you still have your hand up?
Yeah, Tony, I got a question for you. So I'm in Dallas. So hurricanes come up from the Houston Corpus area. We have tornadoes here in Dallas. We got ice storms. You recall back, and those that were on the U.S. in February, there was a light snow, but temperatures plunged below freezing, and about a third of the Texas population was frozen out of power for the better part of a week. So all that really comes to this, Tony, just kind of your insight. So a lot of government is pushing out, buy water for 3 days, get a generator or some way to heat yourself when the temperatures drop. One of the things that I've seen that's been a real problem is, and I don't think the insurance industry by any means, they've tried, but I don't think they've even come close to tackling this, is, okay, so my house freezes over and the pipes bust, or a hurricane hits and the garage goes bye-bye kind of thing. Well,
right.
Contractors aren't going to do a one-off job for a homeowner unless they charge triple. And then Home Depot, Lowe's, they don't even have, the siding, the roofing material, the nails, unless you order it now at triple the price and wait 3 months for it to arrive. So right now, Dallas is going to rain, I think, tonight and tomorrow, just going to be light, not going to be too big of a deal, but we're coming into more like the fall season. So like, what can you tell someone, regardless of the natural disaster, like how do you prepare to be best prepared for once the event is over and you have damage, how to get through it, how to rebuild and so forth?
Yeah, that's been a challenge. I mean, the first thing I tell people is before the disaster happens is to have their house in order. And I don't think that people are prepared out there at all. I mean, this is just the simple. No, because I've actually consulted some of the a corporation on, saying to them, this is what you need to get you want to be proactive in Dallas, you want to be proactive in Florida, get your people to have, the just the simples, the waters, the food, because you're going to be down. I mean, people used to say only 3 days, but now you're looking at more 5, 10, 15 days. I mean, look all over the world of what's happened because people can't get in. So forget, you got the food, you got the medicine, you should prepare. Those of you that know you live in cities that need generators, get the generators, get them ahead of time because they're going to sell out 5 days ahead of time. They're not going to sell out, 5 months ahead.
Yes.
But right. And then afterwards, afterwards, my biggest thing is, I work a lot with, residents, people that are homes. And the good thing is the insurance companies have made contracts with a lot of these, service masters and things like that that are going to come in and take care of things. But really, I mean, the first thing you want to do when you get some disaster happens to you is really call your insurance company, and they will really set you up with the right insurance housing company. They'll get your contractors out there right away, which is kind of sad is the people that don't know that, they're lost. They're years. I live in California, and we had wildfires here, like literally up the street. I was in Ventura. It was a Thomas fire. And I went out and I was like going around to my neighbors and friends, and I'm like, okay, this is what you've got to do. You've got to get your paperwork, always have your paperwork everywhere. Have your credit cards in your purse right near as you're ready to run out the door. Have a phone. Don't forget those things. And then, and then you'd be the first person that asks for housing. I'm going to tell you all, God forbid something happened to you in a city, you need to be the first person to ask for hotels and corporate housing. Don't sit, and this sounds awful, but don't sit and wait. I mean, don't sit and wait and go, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? If you know your house is not livable, you're not going to be able to get in, get a hotel right away before everybody else does. Get on the phone with those contractors before anybody else does. And, get your temporary housing because it goes fast. And I mean, I've had to place people, my companies have had to place people sometimes half hour, an hour, 2 hours away. I mean, it's a big, Katrina. I mean, we were putting people in the other countries, other states. And it was interesting, like for Katrina and some of the bigger ones, companies were actually moving their people. I was working with not only the insurance companies, but I was working with corporations, and we devised a plan. Like, can you take, your employees and move them from Dallas to California for 6 months and let them work out of your California office? So there's planning that you've got to put in place now before that next disaster happens, because I think that my thought is, the insurance companies have it pretty well wired on what you need to do, but corporations need to do that. Corporations have to have a plan on what are they going to do with their people after there's a disaster. And I feel that that's probably, and no disrespect to corporations, but I don't think that people are thinking that far. What is my plan? How am I going to help my employees? Because, they're going to be like, wow, what am I going to do? We're going to, we're going to help them figure out the insurance paperwork. We need to have somebody that's going to, it's not even like insurance paperwork. It is, how am I going to get clothes? How am I going to get, new furniture? It's all of that. So if the resources, and people can help, get the resources and get through the community and know how the community is going to work. That's super important, because it's amazing how a community can come together that didn't get it, the people that didn't get impacted. I watched it. People were giving gift cards and cash, new clothes. P&G was giving, Procter & Gamble was giving toilet paper and toothpaste. So all of these things, it's a community effort, and companies to work together and pre-plan what their plan is before and after.
Tony, it's wonderful to hear you on our program. Thank you for all that. Ann Ellis, I know you're on a time zone thing here. What would you like everybody to take away, as we have about 6 minutes left on this recording? Ann Ellis, you're in Dubai and you have a global company, and thank God you've had a really good year, and really happy for you guys. I know you've worked real hard over the years. So what would you like everybody to know? And keep in mind that the audience for this show is going to be 6 months from now, as well as next month and next week. We'll have about 100,000 looking at this show across the next 12 months.
Well, before I leave, because actually it's getting quite late here now, I'm interested to hear about people talking about the students, the universities, because actually that has been one of our biggest jobs over the pandemic, that we have been supporting universities in the US, because actually the students couldn't actually get into the US from abroad. So what we did was we supported many of them by employing the graduate assistants, the research assistants, as they stayed in their home countries, and they were still able to work with universities online, and we were able to pay them whatever their allowances, their stipends, so that they can continue to support the universities. And this was a big job for us in the last 18 months. So.
Thank you, Anne. I welcome you back on Global TV. Your words of wisdom and your experience are terrific. Saktin, thank you very much for being on the show. What would you like everybody to learn from your perspective here?
First of all, thank you.
Thank you.
This was amazing, and thank you to Kata who had invited me for this. Thank you very much. Well, it was quite amazing for me, and just thinking how we can work together, because as I said, I'm into immigration, and a lot of people are on the same front, like Tony, and we can work, Chuck and Edwards, we can also work together. So just trying to explore how we can work together. That's it. Okay, don't forget, use the chat in the next 5 minutes. Chuck Brooks, thank you so much for your time. I know it's really valuable. So what do you think? Is the Biden administration going to go forward with cybersecurity for everybody in the world? Just in the U.S.?
In the U.S.? Well, there's a lot of activity there. They've hired some very good people at Department of Homeland Security, and they're doing a lot more with industry, which is a good sign, really, because it's a public-private thing. Government can't do it all and shouldn't do it all. But I think encouraging cooperation is really the avenue to do. And there's a lot of people that came from industry that are doing that. It's something we're going to have for the rest of our lives, and more so. And it is global. It's not just the United States. So, cybersecurity is going to be just an integral part of our lives for everything we do. And just like everyone else is talking about here, it really comes down to risk management, whether you're in business, whether you're in travel, human resources. It's all planning and strategy, and knowing that there's something unexpected out there and prepare for it up front.
So this guy, Elon Musk, he does some exponential thinking sometimes, and one of his brainstorms is to have satellite internet. In other words, the Wi-Fi is coming from space. So how secure can that be?
Well, I mean, it's happening already. I mean, he's not the only one, but he is an exponential thinker, and he's leading the way, and that's great. I think the more people like that, the more we advance. It can be risky, but we already use satellite communications, and depends upon only some of these smaller satellites that they don't really have a lot of bandwidth to do encryption and security. So it really depends what you do for the for your where you're routing it from. So that's where you could probably have more security. But I think it's going to go that way, and I think it'll be layers of transmission from space, from ground, wireless, 5G. It's all happening.
Right. Thank you, Chuck. Kato, what would you like to take away from here? What would you like us to know about what you're going to be doing next week?
So next week, I'm not sure, because there's always a fire, there's always a drama. But in terms of the immigration and relocation world, but I want to bring into the table that please, for the ones that are working in immigration, relocation, students or workers abroad, there's always an opportunity with Canada as well. I'm not trying to take business away from US, but also a lot of students, a lot of IT companies are putting a hub, or they're setting up a hub in Toronto or Canada, and then that's how they enter the US. So there's always a possibility for students or workers to get a work visa in Canada. Once they're in Canada, they can apply for a visa and be transferred to the US.
Yeah, so Microsoft did that about 10, 12 years ago in Vancouver, and then all of Hollywood followed them around. And so It's interesting that you're saying that.
We have huge companies from India right now. We have a lot of IT people stuck there, and we're thinking through the process, and we want to make sure if they need to be closer to the US time zone, it will be a good opportunity to think of Canada as a tech hub, and then they can travel back and forth Canada.
That's good advice.
Yeah, that's real good advice. All right, Ed Rivas, work for a Parisian company, world of business, and here you are in Dallas. Are you going to expand into giving more in-person sessions like we used to do?
Yeah, actually, I think, right now in fact, Ed, I was gonna, I was focusing on today, but In November, I will be in your neck of the woods. We'll talk more about it later on, but I will be in your neck of the woods. Yes. So little by little, I think if I've seen a lot of corporations, they're kind of expanding, but I don't think it's really going to start really opening up until probably the second or third quarter 2022 to really say business as usual. But just as a closing remark, I think what I would say is, of course, right, like I was talking with Kata about, insurance policies for different things and so forth. I think a lot of it also is either through the insurance companies or separately. I think a lot of employers, it just behooves us to have either it's in-house or outsourced, someone that understands security, understands that world, that can more or less, and if it makes sense, kind of shock a little bit the employees into saying, oh gosh, I have to think about this kind of thing, and then companies to be a little bit more agile in their structure so that when the unexpected happens, not only do they have people they can rely upon to help them, but they kind of jump and they move and they act on it. And so, like Tony, just talking with Tony, I can tell that her value to an insurance company is much more than, oh yeah, help me settle the claim for my client. That actually really means that I'm going to get a little check mark saying, this is why I'm with Progressive. This is why I'm with this insurance company, because it wasn't because they cut me a check for, $100,000 for the damage to my home. It's that they actually helped me through this whole thing kind of thing. So, and that's important, having people that can back you up. And whether it's in the United States, what's in Europe, around the world, it's important.
Great. All right. Thank you to our sponsors. I really appreciate you all out there. And I thank you, Tony and Ed and Sakin and Ann Ellis. It's wonderful to have you back. Kata, Chuck Brooks, please come back on Global TV.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
It's really been cool.
Bye.
Let's do it again. Take care. And this is
Thank you.
Ed in San Diego, where we got to sign off. We've been on too long. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.